Chapter 1. The Tomb with No Body. For 4.5 millennia, it has dominated the horizon, a man-made mountain of stone, the last wonder of the ancient world. The Great Pyramid of Giza, we are told with absolute certainty that it is a tomb, the grandest, most elaborate, most expensive burial monument ever conceived, built to house the immortal soul of a single man, the Pharaoh Khufu. There is just one problem. It isn't. This single, staggering fact is the starting point for a mystery that unravels everything we think we know about our own past. The Great Pyramid is an anomaly. It is a riddle that fails every test of its supposed purpose. A tomb, by its very definition, requires 3 things: a body, the treasures for that body to use in the afterlife, and the sacred inscriptions to guide its soul. The Great Pyramid has none of them. No mummy was ever found. No burial goods, not a single shard of pottery, splinter of furniture, or grain of gold were ever recovered from its chambers. And most telling of all, its vast, internal walls are completely, terrifyingly bare. No hieroglyphs, no funerary texts, no prayers, no spells, no book of the dead to guide the pharaoh. Not even a single carving to tell us who it was built for. To understand how truly bizarre this is, we must leave Giza. Let us travel south, down the Nile, to the Valley of the Kings. Let us stand at the entrance to another, much smaller tomb, the tomb of Tutankhamun. When Howard Carter breached those famous sealed doorways in 1922, he was not met with bare stone. He was met with a chaotic, glorious avalanche of gold. Statues, thrones, dismantled chariots, ritual beds, priceless jewelry, jars of wine, and boxes of food. It was an entire king's life, crammed into a tiny space, and the tomb itself, the sarcophagus, the burial chamber, was a dense tapestry of inscriptions, a spiritual engine, a vessel packed with every map, spell, and prayer a god-king would need to navigate the dangers of the underworld. That is what a royal tomb in ancient Egypt looks like. Now, return to Giza. Return to the Great Pyramid. Stand inside the colossal structure that is 1,000 times the volume of Tut's tomb, a monument that supposedly bankrupted a nation, and we are met with silence, emptiness, bare, cold stone. The immediate answer, the one taught in every textbook, is grave robbers. This is the lazy, catch-all explanation for every inconsistency on the Giza plateau. We are asked to believe that, sometime in the distant past, thieves managed to penetrate the pyramid's defences, navigating its labyrinthine passages in pitch darkness. They are said to have defeated the multi-ton granite plugs, located the hidden chambers, and then, what? They supposedly stole everything. They took the 70-ton sarcophagus lid. They took every piece of treasure. And then, apparently, they brought chisels and polishers to scrub every single hieroglyph from every single wall, leaving the stone as smooth and sterile as a surgical theatre. This is not how thieves operate. Grave robbers are thieves, not cleaners. They are messy. They smash what they cannot carry. They leave debris they would have no interest in, or ability to, erase the sacred texts carved into the walls. The story of grave robbers simply does not hold. The oldest and most reliable account of the pyramid being entered comes from 820 AD. The Caliph al-Ma'mun, believing the pyramid held ancient knowledge, not gold. So, they blasted their way in, using brute force and fire, chiseling a new tunnel straight into the pyramid's core. What did they find? After this colossal effort, according to the legends, they found nothing. The chambers were just as empty then as they are today. The pyramid was already vacant, already silent, its purpose long forgotten. Well, not quite nothing. There is one object inside the pyramid. The entire structure, a complex network of passages and galleries, leads to a single, central room, the king's chamber. We are told it is the sarcophagus of Khufu, but like the pyramid itself, it fails every test. It is not a masterpiece. It is a crude, utilitarian tank of Aswan granite. Its sides are rough-sawn, not polished. Its lid is missing. One corner is famously broken, a piece of damage that appears ancient. This is not the final, pristine resting place of a god-king. But the most damning piece of evidence is this. The granite box is significantly larger than the passageway that leads to the chamber. Read that again. The sarcophagus could not have been brought into the room after the room was finished. It was installed as the pyramid was being built around it. This is not how you bury a king. A burial is the final act. The coffin is brought in last. This is how you install a piece of core equipment. This object was not a coffin. It was a component. A pharaoh's sarcophagus was a sacred work of art, covered in spells, sealed in magic. This looks like a piece of industrial hardware. A holding tank. A resonating box. The pyramid contains no body, and its coffin was never a coffin. The tomb theory is not just weak, it is impossible. It is a story we have been told. A story that began to crumble the moment we applied simple logic. So if the primary evidence for a tomb is non-existent, what is the primary evidence linking it to the Pharaoh Khufu at all? That is an even darker story. A story of ambition, desperation, and a forgery that has defined history for nearly 200 years. Chapter 2. Forging a Pharaoh. If the Great Pyramid is not a tomb, then how did it become so inextricably linked with the 4th dynasty pharaoh, Khufu? The answer is not found in ancient papyri or royal annals. It is found in a single, dubious, and desperate act of discovery in 1837. For centuries, the pyramid guarded its secrets. After Caliph al-Mamun's forced entry in 820 AD, the monument was known to be empty. It offered no name, no history. It simply was. It remained this way until the 19th century, the great age of Egyptian exploration, when European aristocrats and adventurers scrambled over one another for fame and treasure. Enter Colonel Howard Vyse. Vyse was not an archaeologist. He was a British soldier with a vast fortune and even vaster ambition. He arrived in Giza in 1837, taking over the excavation license from his rival, Giovanni Caviglia. Vyse was pouring his inheritance into the sand, an estimated 10,000 British pounds, a colossal sum at the time, and after months of digging, he had found precisely nothing. His money was running out. He was facing professional ruin and ridicule. He needed a discovery. He needed a name. His rival, Caviglia, had already explored the known passages and chambers. So Vyse, in an act of profound desperation, decided to do something no one else had dared. He turned his attention to the king's chamber. High above the ceiling, the architect had left a small, exploratory passage. Vyse, believing more chambers lay hidden above, ordered his men to blast their way upward. It was a brutal, crude, and destructive act, the very antithesis of archaeology. Explosion after explosion ripped through the ancient structure. After weeks of blasting, they broke through into a low, cramped, hollow space. It was a structural void, a space filled with massive, rough-cut granite beams, clearly designed to relieve the immense pressure of the stone above and prevent the king's chamber ceiling from collapsing. It was never meant to be entered. And then, in the flickering lamplight, his team found it. On the rough granite walls, daubed in crude red paint, were graffiti, quarry marks, the kinds of symbols labourers might leave on stones to mark their work gang, and among them, a cartouche, the oval ring that signifies a royal name. The name, he announced to the world, was Khufu. It was the discovery that saved him. He had done it. He had found the builder of the Great Pyramid. The history books were written, and the case was closed. But the case should have been opened. The evidence is so profoundly contaminated, so steeped in suspicion, that it beggars belief. Let's look at the graffiti. These are not royal inscriptions. They are rough, informal markings. The entire theory rests on the belief that these are the casual daubings of the original builders, sealed away for 4,500 years. There is just one problem. The cartouche is misspelled. To understand this, we must understand the state of Egyptology in 1837. Hieroglyphs had only recently been deciphered. The first comprehensive dictionary available to Vyse was a book titled Materia Hieroglyphica, published by Sir John Gardner Wilkinson. This book was brilliant, but it was also new, and it contained errors. In Wilkinson's book, the hieroglyph for KH, The first sound in Khufu was incorrectly drawn. The correct symbol is a circle with a single horizontal line, representing a sieve. Wilkinson's book mistakenly listed a variation, a circle with dots inside. The cartouche that Vyse discovered on the wall does not use the correct, known hieroglyph for Khufu. It uses the incorrect symbol, the exact same mistake that appears in the 19th century dictionary Vyse was carrying in his pocket. This is the smoking gun. It is argued that one of Vyse's men, perhaps his assistant Mr. Hill, took a pot of red paint, climbed into the newly blasted chamber before it was officially opened, and copied the name from the dictionary. In his haste, he copied the error. And it's not the only error. Other marks found in the chambers, such as Khnum Khufu, are grammatically impossible for the Old Kingdom. They represent a fundamental misunderstanding of how pharaonic names were constructed, a mistake a 19th century European would make, but not a 4th dynasty Egyptian. Mainstream Egyptology, of course, disputes this. They argue that quarry marks are often crude, and that spelling variations are normal. They accept the markings as authentic. But the coincidence is staggering. Let's be clear. The entire attribution of the greatest, most enigmatic, most precisely built monument on planet Earth to a single pharaoh rests on a few splotches of red paint discovered in a sealed chamber that was blasted open with gunpowder by a man who was desperate for fame and facing financial ruin, and which just so happens to contain the exact same spelling error as the 19th century dictionary he was using. This is not evidence. This is a 19th century scandal, whitewashed into history. If we discard this dubious proof, and we must, the Great Pyramid is left truly anonymous. It has no owner. It has no pharaoh. It is an orphan of time. We are back where we started. A monument with no body, no treasure, no inscriptions, and now, no builder. The tomb theory is dead. The Khufu story is a forgery. The slate is wiped clean. We must stop looking at this structure as a primitive monument to a king. We must abandon the lens of archaeology, which has failed for 200 years. It is time to look at the pyramid for what it truly is, a machine. And to do that, we must look at it not through the eyes of an archaeologist, but through the eyes of an engineer. Chapter 3. The Engineer's Eye. When the lens of archaeology fails, we must turn to a different discipline. When the story of who and why becomes a circle of conjecture and forgery, we must, for the first time, ask the only question that matters. How? This is not a question for Egyptologists. It is a question for builders, for toolmakers, for machinists. For decades, this question was ignored, dismissed, because the implications were too uncomfortable. Then came Christopher Dunn. Dunn was not a historian or an archaeologist. He was a master craftsman and engineer from the high-precision manufacturing industry, a man who had spent his life working with the most advanced aerospace and turbine components. He knew, with mathematical certainty, what it takes to cut and shape hard materials. When he looked at the Giza plateau, he did not see a temple. He did not see a tomb. He saw a factory floor littered with evidence of a technology so advanced it was dismissed by historians simply because it could not have existed. Dunn's premise was simple. The evidence on the stone is the fingerprint of the tool that cut it. If the fingerprint shows precision, the tool must have been precise. The official story, of course, is that the pyramid was built with copper chisels, stone pounders, and wet sand. We are taught that hundreds of thousands of labourers, using tools barely harder than wood, somehow managed to quarry, cut, and place 2.3 million blocks of stone, some weighing as much as 70 tons, with a precision that would make a modern construction foreman weep. This is not just unlikely, it is a physical impossibility. Let us begin with the copper chisel. Aswan granite, the material used for the entire king's chamber and its sarcophagus, is one of the hardest stones on Earth. It is 55% quartz crystal. On the Mohs scale of hardness, copper is a 3. Granite is a 7 or 8. Trying to cut Aswan granite with a copper chisel is like trying to saw through a steel beam with a plastic knife. The tool would disintegrate on first contact. The academic solution is that they didn't cut it, they pounded it. They used hard, baseball-sized dolerite pounders to smash the granite into shape, chipping away at it for decades. This theory is even more absurd. Pounding, by its very nature, is a brutal, imprecise act. It shatters. It creates microfractures. It bruises the stone, leaving a rough, pockmarked surface. The evidence we see inside the Great Pyramid is the exact opposite. We see surfaces that are surgically precise. We see right angles that are, in many cases, perfect. Let's return to the granite box in the king's chamber. Christopher Dunn, bringing the tools of his trade, placed a precision straight edge against the inner surfaces. He found them to be perfectly, astonishingly flat. He found tool marks that indicated a massive saw, 35 feet in diameter, had sliced through the granite. He found corners that were cut with a radius so small it defied explanation. Modern laser scans have confirmed what Dunn found by hand. The main descending passage, a tunnel just over 3 feet high, is a masterpiece of alignment. Over a distance of 350 feet, its deviation from a perfect straight line is less than 1/4 of an inch. The casing stones, the few that remain of the pyramid's original brilliant white outer shell, were fitted with tolerances of 1/50th of an inch. This is a level of precision we would associate with modern optical equipment, not a 4,500-year-old building. It's one thing to move a 70-ton block. It's another thing entirely to lift it 175 feet into the air and place it with such precision that it creates a perfectly level, seamless roof. This level of craftsmanship is not ritualistic. It is not for aesthetics. You don't need this precision to build a tomb for a dead king. You need it to build a machine. The precision was not the goal, it was a requirement. But all of this is circumstantial compared to the single most damning piece of evidence on the Giza plateau. It is the smoking gun that proves, beyond all doubt, that an advanced technology was used. It was first discovered by the father of modern Egyptology himself, Sir Flinders Petrie. Petrie, unlike Vyse, was a meticulous and honest scientist. He went to Giza to measure, not to plunder. He found the drill cores. In Giza and other ancient sites, Petrie discovered dozens of cylindrical holes drilled deep into the hardest stone, as well as the leftover cores that were pulled out. He catalogued them, measured them, and was baffled by them. He could not explain them. They have been sitting in museum drawers for a century, silently refuting the copper chisel theory. It was Christopher Dunn who finally decoded them. When a drill cuts into a material, it leaves a spiral groove, much like the threads on a screw. The distance between these grooves is called the feed rate. It tells you how far the drill advanced with every single rotation. Dunn examined the Giza drill cores. What he found was staggering. The feed rate of the ancient Egyptian drill was 0.100 of an inch per revolution. To understand what this means, a modern industrial diamond drill bit, drilling into the same granite, advances at a rate of 0.0002 inches per revolution. The ancient drill was cutting 500 times faster. This is not a typo. 500 times faster. To cut granite at that speed, the drill would have to be applied with an immense, inhuman amount of downward force, thousands of pounds of pressure to keep it from shattering. No human or team of humans could ever generate this force. But it gets stranger. The drill cores show something else, something that baffled Petrie. The grooves are deeper in the quartz than in the softer feldspar. A simple abrasive drill like a copper tube with sand would do the opposite. It would cut the softer material faster. This evidence points to only one possible, impossible technology. Ultrasonic drilling. This is a 20th century technology. An ultrasonic drill doesn't cut by grinding, it cuts by vibrating. A tool, vibrating at thousands of cycles per second, pulverizes the material in front of it. In granite, this high-frequency vibration would shatter the hard quartz crystals far more easily than the soft feldspar, creating the exact grooves we see on the cores. This technology would also explain the incredible feed rate. The tool wasn't grinding, it was literally destroying the stone at a molecular level. This is the evidence, not a theory, not a fringe idea. This is the physical fingerprint left by the tool. We have evidence of precision flatness that rivals modern optical standards. We have evidence of blocks placed with a control we cannot replicate, and we have undeniable mathematical proof of high-frequency, ultrasonic machining. The tools of the primitive builders, the copper chisels, the dolerite pounders, the wet sand, are a myth. They are a fable, invented by archaeology to protect a narrative that was broken from the very beginning. The civilization that built the Great Pyramid was not primitive. They were sophisticated. They were masters of physics, engineering, and acoustics. We are not looking at a monument to a dead king. We are looking at the remnants of a lost technology. We are looking at a machine. The next question is obvious. What did this machine do? The answer begins not with the stones, but with the ground beneath them. The pyramid was not just built on the Giza plateau. It was built because of it. Chapter 4. The Earth Battery. A machine, no matter how precise, is useless without a power source. The solution to the pyramid's greatest mystery, its power is not found in the sky or in some lost, exotic technology. The answer has been right beneath its feet from the very beginning. The builders of the Great Pyramid did not bring a power source to the site. They chose the site because it was the power source. The Giza Plateau is not just a convenient, stable slab of rock. It is one of the most geologically unique and energetic points on the surface of the Earth. The ancient builders, with a knowledge of geophysics we are only beginning to rediscover, understood this. They knew that the plateau was a natural battery, and they built a machine to plug directly into it. The orthodox explanation for the pyramid's location is, like every other part of its story, simplistic. It's high, it's flat, it's stable. Geologists have confirmed that the Giza Plateau is a limestone prominence riddled with caves and, most critically, positioned directly over a massive underground aquifer system, a vast network of underground rivers. Part of the Nubian sandstone aquifer flows through the rock strata deep beneath the pyramid. This is not a trivial detail. This is the key. The ancient builders knew this water was there. In fact, it was the first thing they began to work with. 100 feet directly below the base of the pyramid, carved deep into the limestone bedrock, is the most baffling and misunderstood room in the entire structure. The subterranean chamber. This chamber is the opposite of the rest of the pyramid. It is not precise. It is a chaotic, rough-hewn cavern. Its floor is a series of pits and trenches, and its walls are ragged. Because it is so imperfect, Egyptology dismisses it. It is labelled as a failed burial chamber. The story goes that the builders started their tomb here, realised the rock was unstable, and simply changed their minds, moving the burial chamber higher up. This is, perhaps, the most illogical part of the entire Orthodox narrative. We are asked to believe that the civilization that could align a 6 million ton structure to true north with the accuracy of a modern laser, that could cut Aswan granite 500 times faster than a modern drill, that could place 70-ton blocks with hair's breadth precision. This chamber was not a failure. It was the engine. Its chaotic, rough-cut design was intentional. It was not meant to be a tomb. It was meant to be an interface, designed to maximize the surface area and interaction with the bedrock. This chamber was the intake, the pump room for the entire machine. But what was it pumping? The answer lies in two powerful natural phenomena: piezoelectricity and telluric currents. Piezoelectricity is a well-known property of physics. Squeeze a crystal of quartz, and it releases a small, measurable electric charge. This is how a modern barbecue lighter works. A spring-loaded hammer strikes a piece of quartz, creating the spark. The Giza Plateau, both the limestone and the granite foundation it sits upon, is saturated with quartz crystals. The Great Pyramid itself, weighing 6 million tons, exerts an unimaginable, constant pressure on this quartz-rich rock. This alone would create a steady, baseline, piezoelectric charge. But the ancient builders needed more than a static charge. They needed a pulse. They needed a current. This is where the aquifer comes in. The underground rivers flowing beneath the plateau are not a gentle stream. They are a powerful hydraulic system, and their movement, rushing through the caves and fissures, creates an immense amount of acoustic and mechanical energy. This flowing water, this hydraulic pulse, puts a dynamic pressure on the quartz-rich rock, causing it to vibrate and release its electrical charge in a steady, powerful rhythm. The planet itself is alive with energy. The Earth's magnetic field, interacting with the ionosphere, creates a natural electrical grid known as telluric currents. These currents flow through the planet's crust, especially through conductive materials like water. The Giza aquifer acts as a massive subterranean conductor, concentrating these telluric currents. The Giza Plateau is what geophysicists would call a hotspot, a point where all these forces converge. The flowing water, the tectonic stress, the piezoelectric quartz, and the concentrated telluric currents all combine to create a powerful, low-frequency acoustic vibration. The Earth itself hums at this location. The subterranean chamber was built to capture this hum. It was a resonant chamber, tuned to the specific frequency of the aquifer and the bedrock. Its rough-hewn pits and trenches were not failures. They were designed to interact with the moving water and the energy it carried, converting that hydraulic energy into a powerful vibration. This low-frequency infrasound, a sound so deep it is felt, not heard, was then channeled up from the chamber, drawn into the very heart of the pyramid. The subterranean chamber was the first stage of the machine. It was the primer. It took the raw, chaotic energy of the Earth, the kinetic energy of the water, and the telluric currents of the planet, and converted it into a refined, powerful, low-frequency acoustic vibration. This vibration was the fuel. The pyramid itself was the engine built to use it. The entire structure, from this deep, dark chamber upward, was not a monument to the dead. It was a massive transducer, a device designed to harvest the natural energy of the Earth, concentrate it, amplify it, and convert it into a higher, more sophisticated form. It was, in the most literal sense, an Earth battery, plugged directly into the socket of the planet. Now, they had to build the components to handle it. Chapter 5. The Resonator. A machine that has found its power source must do something with that power. It cannot be left raw and untamed. The low-frequency acoustic hum, harvested from the aquifer and the bedrock by the subterranean chamber, was the fuel. But the pyramid was not a simple battery. It was a converter. It was an engine designed to step up this raw energy, to amplify it, to tune it, and to transform it into a higher, more sophisticated form. This process of transformation begins with the pyramid's most famous and most misunderstood feature. Today, we see a rough, tiered, tangent-coloured monument stripped bare by time. Originally, the Great Pyramid was encased in over 144,000 blocks of highly polished, white Tura limestone. These stones were cut with such baffling precision that they fit together with seams of 1/50th of an inch, creating a single, smooth, monolithic surface. This shell was not for beauty. It was a functional component. Tura limestone is a remarkable material. It is nearly free of magnesium and has a very high quartz crystal content, making it a powerful insulator. This smooth, white, crystalline shell acted as a giant dielectric barrier. It sealed the pyramid, preventing the energy being harnessed inside the structure from discharging prematurely into the atmosphere or grounding into the earth. It was the insulation on a colossal wire, the casing on a massive engine. This design tells us something critical. The energy was meant to be contained, cultivated, and directed upward. If the outer casing was the insulator, the inner chambers and passages were the conductors. While the bulk of the pyramid is limestone, the most critical, internal components, the passages, the galleries, and the king's chamber, are all constructed from Aswan granite. As we've established, this granite is 55% quartz crystal. It is a perfect piezoelectric conductor. The entire internal architecture of the pyramid was a network of conductive, crystalline rock designed to channel the low-frequency hum from the subterranean chamber and guide it like a current. This is where the design becomes truly magnificent. The energy, channeled upward, flows directly into one of the most enigmatic spaces on the planet, the Grand Gallery. Archaeologists are baffled by this room. It is a structural marvel. It's 153 feet long and soars to a height of 28 feet, with its walls corbelled inward in 7 precise overlapping steps. It is a towering, magnificent, and acoustically perfect hallway that seems to serve no purpose. The ceremonial explanation is that it was simply a grand passageway. But this makes no sense. Why build something so vast, so complex, so acoustically alive, just to walk through it? Along the base of the gallery run 2 ramps, and cut into them are 27 pairs of mysterious, evenly spaced slots. The official theory is that these slots held wooden beams to help slide the sarcophagus up the incline. This theory is laughable. The granite box in the king's chamber is, as we know, wider than the passage it would have to come through. It was installed during construction. These slots served another purpose entirely. Christopher Dunn proposed a radical, brilliant, and terrifyingly logical solution. It was the main amplifier for the machine. The 27 pairs of slots were not for beams, but for a series of 27 pairs of acoustic resonators, perhaps wooden or crystalline devices, anchored in place, each one tuned to a slightly different frequency. Imagine the process. The low-frequency vibration from the earth is channeled into the base of the gallery. As this hum travels up the immense 153-foot pipe, it strikes the first set of resonators, causing them to vibrate in sympathy. This vibration is added to the original, which then strikes the next set, and the next, and the next. The acoustic energy builds on itself, amplifying at each stage. The corbelled walls are the final piece of the puzzle. They are not decorative. They are an acoustic lens. This 7-stepped, inward-sloping design acts as a massive horn, collecting and focusing the chaotic, amplified sound wave, compressing it, and directing it like a sonic cannon at a single, tiny opening, the entrance to the king's chamber. This chamber is the heart of the machine. It is not a room. It is a precision-tuned instrument. It is a perfect box of red Aswan granite. Every surface, walls, floor, and ceiling is perfectly flat. The mathematical ratios of the room's dimensions are harmonically perfect, designed to resonate at a very specific frequency. The entire chamber was built, from the ground up, to vibrate. This is where all the energy of the pyramid was focused. The amplified acoustic wave from the grand gallery, compressed into a powerful beam, was fired into the king's chamber. The chamber, built of conductive, crystalline granite, absorbed this energy and began to resonate violently, the entire room humming with unimaginable power. But this energy still needed to be tuned. It needed to be brought to a single, pure, coherent frequency. This was the job of the granite box in the center of the room, the sarcophagus. It is not a coffin. It is a tuning fork. It sits in the precise acoustic center of the chamber. It is carved from a single, solid block of granite. Modern acoustic tests, performed when striking the box, have yielded a clear, resonant, and beautiful tone. The frequency of that note is a subject of much debate, but many independent researchers have clocked it at a harmonic of 110 to 111 Hz, a frequency that corresponds to an F-sharp. Why F-sharp? This is where the science becomes truly profound. The Earth itself, in its natural state, has a background resonant frequency. This Schumann resonance is the planet's heartbeat, its baseline hum. While the primary resonance is extremely low, around 7.83 Hz, its harmonics, the overtones it produces, include a frequency that oscillates right at F-sharp. This cannot be a coincidence. This is the final, brilliant piece of engineering. The subterranean chamber harvested the Earth's raw, chaotic hum. The grand gallery amplified it from a whisper to a roar. The king's chamber, a granite echo box, absorbed this roar and began to shake. And the granite sarcophagus, a precision-tuned F-sharp tuning fork, resonated in perfect, sympathetic harmony with the planet itself. It was the final transducer. It converted the raw, powerful acoustic energy into one single, pure, coherent sonic vibration. The pyramid was now a colossal musical instrument, playing one note, aimed at the heavens. The energy was harvested. It was amplified. It was tuned. The power plant was fully operational. The answer lay in a different part of the machine, a part of the machine designed not for physics, but for chemistry. Chapter 6. The Chemical Factory. A machine that can successfully harvest and perfectly tune the Earth's fundamental frequency is a marvel of physics. But it is only half a machine. The energy, now converted into a pure, coherent, sonic vibration within the king's chamber, is still just potential. It is an engine idling, its power immense, but, as of yet, untasked. A power plant, by definition, must produce a usable product. The king's chamber was not the final product. It was the engine. The power it generated was not meant to be beamed to the sky. It was designed to be focused, aimed, and directed at a second, subordinate component. That power was aimed downward. Directly beneath the resonant heart of the king's chamber, at the pyramid's precise north-south center, lies the queen's chamber. This room, like every other, is a victim of a 19th century fantasy. It was never intended for a queen. In the rigid, uncompromising world of Egyptian dynastic burial, the great wife of the pharaoh was never an afterthought, never interred in a smaller, rougher, secondary room beneath her king. This arrangement is an insult to the royal protocol of the Old Kingdom. The chamber's position makes no sense as a tomb, but it makes perfect, undeniable sense as another component in a vast, interconnected machine. It is here that the pyramid's purpose pivots from the physics of sound to the science of chemistry. At first glance, the Queen's chamber is austere, almost crude, compared to the granite perfection of the King's chamber. It is carved from the same limestone as the passages, not the conductive granite. And it has one structural feature that has baffled Egyptologists for centuries: a high, gabled, pointed roof. The orthodox explanation, repeated in textbooks, is that this was a primitive design, a failed experiment in roofing before the builders perfected the technique with the flat roof and massive relieving chambers above the King's chamber. This is demonstrably, provably false. The two designs are not a good and bad version of the same idea. They are two different designs for two different problems. The relieving chambers above the King's chamber, a stack of massive, rough-cut granite beams, are a work of structural genius designed to solve one problem: external load. They are built to deflect the hundreds of thousands of tons of stone above them, protecting the flat ceiling of the chamber from being crushed. The Queen's chamber's gabled roof is a classic, textbook piece of engineering designed for the exact opposite problem: internal pressure. The sloping sides, pressed against each other at the apex, are one of the most stable forms in architecture for containing a force pushing outward from within. This was not a failed tomb. This was a purpose-built pressure vessel. It was a reactor core. Inside this reactor, on its eastern wall, is another strange, corbelled niche. It looks like a sealed fireplace, a narrow opening that seems designed to focus energy, or perhaps act as an overpressure vent for the reaction within. But the true, undeniable proof of this chamber's function, the clue that shatters the tomb theory forever, lies in the two features that make it utterly unique in all of Egypt: the air shafts. Like the King's chamber, this room has two shafts, one on the north wall, one on the south. They are small, unassuming, only about 8 inches wide. For over a century, they were dismissed as ventilation shafts. But this was a lazy assumption, a footnote in a flawed theory, and it was completely wrong. Unlike the shafts in the King's chamber, these two shafts did not originally open into the room. They were sealed at the surface with a thin layer of stone, left meticulously intact by the original builders. They also, crucially, do not exit the pyramid. They take several sharp, deliberate turns and stop deep within the core. A ventilation shaft that is sealed at both ends is not a ventilation shaft. It is a pipe. For 4,500 years, they remained a mystery. Two black squares on a wall. Then, in 1993, a German robotics engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink, in a self-funded exploration, sent a small, custom-built robot, Upuaut 2, on a journey up the southern shaft. The world watched, breathless, as the tiny machine, crawling on its tank-like treads, travelled over 200 feet into the blackness, deeper into the pyramid's core than any human had ever been. And then it stopped. Its camera revealed an object that should not have been there. It was not a blockage. It was not a collapse. It was a small, beautifully cut limestone slab, a door blocking the passage. And on this door, mounted with geological precision, were two small, elegant copper fittings. This discovery was an earthquake. It shook the very foundations of Egyptology. Copper, not stone, not wood, metal, a known conductor of electricity, set in a pattern that looked, to any modern engineer, like electrodes. This was not ritual. This was not a spirit door for the Ka of the Queen. This was technology. The discovery was so profound, so uncomfortable, that the project was immediately halted by the Egyptian authorities, and Gantenbrink's work was suppressed. The mystery deepened, and the door remained closed for 9 long years. In 2002, a National Geographic team, in a highly publicised live event, received permission to do what Gantenbrink was forbidden to do. They would drill a tiny hole through the Gantenbrink door. They pushed a fibre-optic camera through the hole, and the global audience held its breath. What they found was even more shocking. It was not a chamber. It was not a hidden treasure. It was a small, empty space. and another door, 21 centimeters behind the first. This was not a simple door. This was a complex, multi-stage plug and socket system. This was high-level engineering. The final, definitive piece of the puzzle came in 2011 with the Jedi project, a more sophisticated, articulated robot, equipped with a microsnake camera, was able to maneuver through the 2002 drill hole and peer around the second door. What it found, in the small space between the doors, was definitive. On the back of the second door were two ornate, beautifully crafted copper loops, or pins, connected in a way that formed a clear electrical circuit. And on the floor of the tiny, sealed chamber, scribbled in red ochre paint by the original builders, were hieratic markings, numbers and symbols. Not a prayer, not a curse. This was the final nail in the coffin of the tomb theory. We are looking at a complex, sealed, multi-stage plumbing and electrical system, with assembly notes left by the ancient technicians. The evidence from the northern shaft confirmed it. When Gantenbrink's robot explored that shaft, it too found a door with copper fittings. Critically, one of the copper fittings was heavily corroded, as if it had been in contact with a powerful chemical agent, a liquid or gas, for a very, very long time. And when the shafts were first explored, fine, white powder and salt incrustations were found. Mineral traces. The undeniable residue of a liquid. Let us review the evidence. We have two sealed pipes, not shafts. We have complex, multi-stage doors, not spiritual passages. We have copper electrodes, not decorations. We have chemical corrosion. We have assembly instructions. And we have the residue of chemicals. This is not archaeology. This is industrial chemistry. Christopher Dunn, looking at this mountain of irrefutable, technological evidence, proposed the only theory that fits all the facts. The Queen's chamber was a chemical reactor. The two shafts were delivery pipes for two distinct liquid chemicals, stored in unknown reservoirs deep within the pyramid's massive core. Based on the mineral residues found chlorides and salts and the need for a specific, high-energy reaction, Dunn proposed the most likely candidates. A hydrated zinc chloride solution delivered down one shaft and a dilute hydrochloric acid solution down the other. Now, imagine the process. The machine is running. The king's chamber is vibrating at its F-sharp harmonic. The entire pyramid is a humming, sonic engine. The liquids are fed, in controlled, precise measures, down the sealed shafts. The copper electrodes, perhaps connected to the pyramid's own piezoelectric charge, act as sensors, measuring the flow and starting a small electrolytic charge. The two liquids meet in the sealed, pressurized Queen's chamber. A violent chemical reaction begins, but this reaction, on its own, would be slow and inefficient. It needs an energy source to be efficient. It needs a catalyst to drive it, to turn a simple chemical mix into a hyper-efficient gas generator. Where does that power come from? It comes from directly above. The king's chamber, the massive F-sharp resonator, sits on a floor of granite beams that form the support structure for the Queen's chamber below. Its entire, massive, vibrating engine is, by design, shaking the reactor vessel. The acoustic energy is not just a byproduct, it is the catalyst. This is a 21st century science known as sonochemistry. By introducing intense, high-frequency sound, vibration, into a chemical liquid, you can create, destroy, and accelerate chemical reactions in ways that defy conventional physics. The intense sound waves create cavitation bubbles, microscopic, vacuum-filled bubbles that form and then violently implode. As they collapse, the temperatures and pressures inside these microscopic bubbles reach the realm of science fiction. Pressures of over 1,000 atmospheres and temperatures as high as 5,000 degrees Celsius, the temperature of the surface of the sun. The king's chamber was a colossal sonochemical engine. Its pure F-sharp vibration was beamed down into the Queen's chamber, stirring the chemical soup with the power of 1,000 suns. On a microscopic level, the liquids were not just mixing, they were being vaporized by high-frequency sound, creating a continuous, hyper-efficient, and incredibly violent reaction. This reaction would produce one thing: a massive, continuous, high-pressure volume of the lightest, simplest, and most energetic gas in the universe. This is the purpose of the gabled roof: to contain the immense, continuous pressure of the resulting gas. This is the purpose of the copper fittings: to act as sensors, catalysts, and perhaps to ionize the gas, priming it for use. The pyramid is a three-stage machine. The battery. The subterranean chamber harvests the Earth's vibration. The engine, the king's chamber and grand gallery, amplify and tune that vibration into a powerful, coherent acoustic wave. The factory. The queen's chamber uses that acoustic wave to drive a sonochemical reaction, producing massive quantities of energized hydrogen gas. We now have a fuel, a clean, powerful, and limitless fuel. The machine has produced its product. But for what? A machine that produces a high-pressure gas needs an exhaust. It needs a pipe to channel that fuel to where it can be used. Where did the hydrogen go? It could only go one place. It would be forced out of the queen's chamber's single doorway, back up the horizontal passage, and then funneled directly into the base of the one massive ascending channel that leads to the top of the pyramid. The grand gallery. It was not just an amplifier for the incoming sound. It was the main exhaust pipe for the outgoing fuel. The hydrogen gas, produced below, would race up this towering 153-foot resonant cannon, accelerating and ionizing as it went, aimed like a superheated bullet at the pyramid's apex. The pyramid was not a tomb. It was a gas plant. It was a power station, and it was now ready to transmit its power. Chapter 7. The wireless transmission. The machine is complete. The system is online. From deep within the bedrock, the Earth's natural energy has been harvested by the subterranean chamber. It has been amplified from a whisper to a roar by the sonic engine of the king's chamber and the grand gallery. That raw, acoustic power has been focused and beamed into the queen's chamber, driving a high-efficiency chemical reaction. And now, the fuel has been created, a massive, continuous volume of highly energized atomic hydrogen gas. This fuel, under immense pressure, has only one place to go. It is forced from the reactor back into the horizontal passage and directed to the base of the grand gallery. This magnificent, corbelled hall now serves its second and most critical purpose. Imagine that column of supercharged hydrogen gas, lighter than air, racing up the 153-foot angled passage. The gallery, already humming with the pyramid's bass frequency, acts as a resonant waveguide. It compresses and accelerates this gas, which becomes more ionized as it rises, a coherent beam of pure energy, aimed with perfect precision at the single, final point of the entire 480-foot-tall structure, the apex. The entire 6-million-ton pyramid has become a lens, a colossal focusing device, designed to collect and deliver a stream of potent fuel to its absolute peak. All that is missing is the final component, the transmitter. This is the greatest mystery of the pyramid, the missing capstone. We are told that the pyramid was topped with a pyramidion, a miniature version of itself, perhaps made of solid gold. This idea, like the tomb theory, is a 19th century fantasy. It is an answer born from a desire for treasure, not an understanding of physics. A solid gold cap would be a terrible antenna. It would be a lightning rod, short-circuiting the entire system. It would be a dead stop, grounding the very energy the machine had worked so hard to create. The capstone was not a decoration. It was the device. It was the final, active, technological component that completed the circuit. It was not a simple stone. It was a complex, crystalline structure, perhaps forged from the same Aswan granite, but with a purity we can only guess at. It may have been gilded, not solid, to enhance its conductivity. It was an antenna, designed to receive the focused beam of atomic hydrogen racing up from the gallery. As this highly energized gas hit the capstone, it would ionize the air at the pyramid's peak, creating a massive, visible corona discharge, a column of plasma connecting the Earth to the sky. The pyramid was now plugged in. It was using the conductive hydrogen to create a pathway, a bridge, directly to the Earth's own upper atmospheric electrical shell, the ionosphere. The pyramid was not just a power plant. It was a broadcast tower, this entire concept harvesting the Earth's natural telluric currents, resonating with the planet's own frequency, and using the ionosphere as a mirror to transmit power, is not some wild, modern fantasy. It is the exact science, the identical blueprint pursued by the greatest electrical mind of the modern age, Nikola Tesla. In the early 1900s, Tesla began construction on his Wardenclyffe Tower. His goal, which the world called madness, was to create a world wireless system. He was not trying to send signals, he was trying to send power. He intended to give free, limitless energy to the entire globe. His method? He would pump energy into the Earth at a specific frequency, using the planet itself as a conductor. The ionosphere, he calculated, would act as a giant, spherical reflector. His tower would create a standing wave of energy. And anyone, anywhere, could build a simple receiver, a tuner, to tap into that global grid. The Great Pyramid is the Wardenclyffe Tower of the ancient world. It is the same machine, built on an infinitely grander and more successful scale. Tesla, in his genius, was not inventing a new future. This is the ultimate purpose of the machine. It was not built to power a single palace. It was built to power a planet. The energy, beamed into the ionosphere, was broadcast globally. This was the central hub. The other pyramids on the Giza Plateau, and perhaps the dozens of others found across Egypt and the world, were not tombs, and they were not imitations. They were receivers, they were substations, relay towers, and step-down transformers, all tuned to the same F-sharp harmonic broadcast by the Giza power plant. This was the energy grid of a lost, global civilization, a civilization that lit its cities, powered its tools like the ultrasonic drills that carved the granite, and perhaps even fueled its vehicles. Without fire, without smoke, without pollution. The machine is logical, the engineering is sound, the evidence is carved into the stone. The pyramid was not a sterile monument to a dead king. It was a living, breathing, humming engine, giving clean, wireless life to an entire world. Chapter 8. A Forgotten Future and the Tomb of Truth. This, then, is the legacy we have inherited. Not a monument to a single, forgotten king, but the functional, beating heart of a global civilization. A civilization that had solved the one problem that continues to plague our modern world. They had achieved harmony between technology and the planet. They lit their cities, powered the impossible ultrasonic tools that carved their granite, and perhaps even fueled vehicles that traversed the earth and sky. They were masters of clean, limitless, terrestrial energy. So where are they? What happened to this extraordinary world, a world so advanced it left an engine of stone behind? The answer, it seems, is written not in human history, but in geological time. A great catastrophe. We see its faint signature in ice cores, in sediment layers, and in the universal flood myths that haunt every human culture. Perhaps it was the Younger Dryas event, 12,800 years ago, a global cataclysm of fire and flood, a cosmic impact that shattered the Earth's crust, shifted the poles, and plunged the world into a new age of darkness. In an instant, the grid would fail. The Giza power plant, its intricate tuning disrupted by a fracturing planet, would fall silent. The survivors, scattered and traumatized, would descend into a dark age, clinging only to fragmented memories. Memories of a golden age when gods walked the earth and wielded the power of the heavens. The knowledge was lost. The machine was forgotten. It was empty, and for 12,000 years, the truth of the machine sat silent, waiting. Why do we not know this now? Why does mainstream archaeology, in the face of undeniable engineering evidence, cling so desperately to the simple, baseless fable of a tomb? Why do they ignore the drill cores, the sonic resonance, the chemical residues, the impossible precision? Is it simple ignorance? Or is it something more willful? Is it a fear of rewriting every history book? A profound, institutional fear of admitting that our primitive ancestors were, in fact, our superiors. The evidence is not hidden in secret archives. It is in the stone. It is open to any engineer, any machinist, any physicist to see. The refusal to engage with this data is, perhaps, the greatest intellectual failure of our time. They have protected a simple narrative at the expense of a profound truth. The evidence is not in dispute, the calculations are sound, the engineering is undeniable. The Great Pyramid of Giza was never a tomb. It is an artifact, a legacy. It is not a message from our primitive past. It is a blueprint from a forgotten future, a future we have yet to reclaim. The pyramid wasn't built to honor a dead king. It was built to give life to an entire civilization. Is the truth that has been buried